Hello, gals, pals, and cinephiles. I'm Ozzy Gonzalez, and we're going to be taking a look at a couple films that have a very big thing in common. Also, spoiler warning for the following films.
Hello, editor's note. So it turns out I completely mispronounced Sharon's name throughout the entire video, so I'm very sorry. So, please forgive me.
The films in topic are as follow:
Moonlight, Sound of Metal, and last but not least, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
This is a very bizarre arrangement of films to lump together, but trust me, it will all make sense in a bit. These films could not be any more different from each other, but there is a very big string that ties it all together. All of these films involve an acceptance of self. And by that I mean the main characters of these films all come to terms with something of themselves. The protagonists of these films find something that they think is wrong about themselves, and after all of their challenges, they accept themselves for who they truly are.
These three films fit the criteria, and we're going to be taking a look over them for a few minutes.
Let's hop into one of the movies. Let's start with A24's first ever Oscar-winning Best Picture, Moonlight.
Moonlight follows our main protagonist Chiron during 3 different phases of his life with 3 different phases of himself. The first phase is childhood, with Chiron going by the name Little. The second phase is adolescence, with Chiron going by his normal name. And the last phase is adulthood, with Chiron going by the nickname Black. Throughout the film, Chiron tries to come to terms with his sexuality and who he is as a person.
But society says otherwise.
Kids would make fun of him, his mom would call him names, and it only gets worse from here.
There's one clip of the film that best shows Chiron coming to terms with himself, and that is the ending of the film.
You're the only man that's ever touched me. You're the only one. I haven't really touched anyone since.
This scene is an amalgamation after so much wrongdoing in Chiron's life. This is one of the first good moments in his life.
From getting chased by kids for being different, his mom calling him offensive names, his first time with someone he cares about, getting beaten up by that same person the very next day, having to bite his tongue and not rat them out, beating a kid with a chair, getting arrested and going to juvie, and then finally revisiting his first love over 10 years later.
This is the kind of build-up that puts a lot of strain on one person. It is in this moment that allows Chiron to open up about himself and show who he truly is.
It is in his tears and the comfort of his first love that allows Chiron to open up. The scene then cuts to a young Chiron with his back facing us looking at the beach. He then turns around to face us. This could symbolize Chiron looking at his inner child and accepting him for who he really is.
Now how about we shift from tears to ears? You'll want to listen to this next film. The next one is Amazon's hit film scoring 2 Oscars, one for Best Editing and another for Best Sound Editing. I'm of course talking about The Sound of Metal.
Sound of Metal is about a heavy metal drummer that is also a recovering addict named Ruben, who is starting to lose his hearing. Ruben then goes to a special rehab for addicts that are also hard of hearing. Throughout the film, Ruben tries everything he can to get his hearing back and wants things to return back to the way they were. He even sells his van to get money for his implants. Remember, this is the same van that Ruben and Lou were living in together at the beginning of the film. He was ready to give up what he had to have some semblance of normalcy. After all his trying, he gets his implants and hears that he's never going to be able to hear the same way again.
There is a clip of the film that shows Ruben coming to terms with his hearing as well as himself. After everything that Ruben went through to get his hearing back, he got it back. But was it worth it in the end?
Right after Ruben takes his implants out, he looks happier and more at peace with himself.
He came to terms with what he has, but knows that he has to live with this for the rest of his life.
He accepts his new life, and instead of running away from it, he runs towards it. Ruben was miserable and an outsider when he first came to rehab. But it is not until Ruben is demanded to leave that he sees what his life has become. He saw a sense of community with his group, the teacher, and as well as the kids.
Just like the old saying, you never know what you have until it's gone. This could be said for both his hearing and his group. Also, Ruben goes through the 5 stages of grief throughout the film when he lost his hearing. Denial. Anger.
I can't fucking hear you. Do you understand me? I can't. I'm fucking deaf.
Bargaining.
Diddle around. What am I gonna have? Nothing. Okay? And all this shit. Like, what does it matter?
Depression. Acceptance. Now for the final film. Though it was released in the last weeks of 2022, it is quickly making its impact on both animation and animated films in general. I am of course talking about DreamWorks Animation's newest Oscar-nominated spectacular, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
The plot of the film is after Puss in Boots dies on his 8th life, Puss then goes on an adventure to find the wishing star. The wishing star has the ability to grant any wish to whoever finds it. Puss then gets the idea to use the star to get his lives back. Along the way, he meets an old partner of his named Kitty Softpaws and an optimistic dog who Puss has named Perito. On his adventure, 2 groups go after the star, and 1 other person is after Puss's life. Goldilocks and the 3 bears, plus Jack Horner and his baker's dozen want the star. But a deadly wolf assassin tries to hunt Puss for his last life, who turns out to be...
Spoiler alert in 3, 2, 1. Death himself.
And I don't mean it metaphorically or rhetorically or poetically or theoretically or in any other fancy way. I'm deaf. Straight up.
Pretty hardcore for an animated movie.
But the film has a good theme of accepting the things around you.
And the clip that I'm about to show you is a good example of this.
What is that?
He's here for me.
I've enjoyed the chase, Gato. But I think we've reached the end now, you and I. You gonna take the coward's way out? Run away to more lives? Or you gonna fight? Pick it up. Go on, pick it up! What's the matter? Lives flashing before your eyes?
No, just one. I'm done running. Fear me if you dare.
Puss becomes a completely different person after his meeting with his friends and Death.
Even later on in the scene, Death says,
I came here for an arrogant little legend who thought he was immortal. But I don't see him anymore.
And he is right. At the beginning of the film, Puss was a cocky person who laughed at the face of death. It is not until his first encounter with death that makes him scared for the first time in his life. But when it came down to his final life and seeing the things around him, he stopped and smelled the roses for once in his life and saw what was around him.
also, fun fact, Goldilocks goes through the same arc.
Goldilocks wants to wish that she never met the bears and had a real family. But when Goldilocks and the three bears go to their old cabin, she opens a book and the page that opens it has the first letter of each sentence saying, "You already have it," and the page ending with, "and they live happily ever after." Also, her clean, multicolored clothes become more muddy and brown the more she realizes that she should stay with the bears.
So two characters of this film also have an acceptance of what's around them. At the beginning, I said all of these films share an acceptance of self. But all of these films have a different acceptance in time.
Moonlight is the acceptance of the past. Sound of Metal is the acceptance of the future. And Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is the acceptance of the present. All of these characters have different personalities from each other, yet still find a way to accept a piece of themselves and move on from a point in their lives.
One of my favorite quotes is, "Life is 10% what happens to you, and 90% is how you react to it." This quote is perfect for the characters and themes in these films.
It is in the actions that allow oneself to move forward with their lives, and these characters had an obstacle in their life that they decided to move past. With Chiron, it was his sexuality. With Reuben, it was his hearing loss. And with Puss in Boots, it was his mortality.
Acceptance of self is a powerful and most of all universal theme that resonates with so many audiences across different cultures and backgrounds.
These three films demonstrate the importance of embracing our true selves and finding the courage to either accept the past, live in the present, or change the future. It is up to you to see an obstacle and if you should run away and hide from it, or accept it head on.
Again, this is just my analysis of these films. Do you agree? Do you disagree? If so, what's your opinion? Thank you for watching and listening to my breakdown of these films.